Hello, welcome. Well, my brain's not quite caught up to the fact that I'm live at the moment. All right, what am I doing? Right, Lunatic Live, Lunatic Patrol Party again tonight. So far we've had two. We watched episode 1 and 2 on two. I think tonight we'll be watching episodes 3 and 4, although possibly we'll just watch three. For anyone who's new to this, there's a Zoom link in the description. It's tonight at 9 Eastern Time. If you're shy or have social anxiety or anything, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to leave your camera and microphone turned off. Feel free just to enjoy the party silently and anonymously. For everyone else who's new, what we do usually is talk for a few minutes while people arrive. Then we either watch a movie or right now we're going through the first season of Doom Patrol. And then that's followed by a discussion, which usually starts related to topics brought up in what we were watching, and then typically goes off on all sorts of tangents in many directions. These have been going really well. They've been a lot of fun. Fuck anything else. If when you come in, when we're playing something, we all leave our mics off, but we also chat a little bit in using the text chat. Okay, these go for typically between 4 and 7 hours. So even if you see this later in the day and you realize you won't make it in time to watch the episodes, feel free to check and see if it's still going. Once the party's over, the link will stop doing anything. But if the link lets you in, then we're still going. I think I covered everything about the announcement for tonight. That was all I had to do popping on. I don't really have anything else to say at the moment. However, I'm also not in a rush to disappear. So, like the last announcement, if anyone here watching has anything they want to talk about, any questions, I'd be happy to stick around for a while. But if nobody has anything to talk about, I will wrap this up and see some of you tonight at 9 o'clock. Let's see. Other news. We posted like a little teaser clip for my podcast with Dr. Amate coming up. I think we're going to be running the podcast as a premiere the first time. And both myself and Dr. Amate will be there to talk to people and chat. So if anyone wants a chance to ask questions of Dr. Oren Amate while the podcast is airing, it looks like we'll be premiering it at 8 p.m. on Sunday, again, Eastern Standard Time. At some point before then, we'll be posting it as an upcoming premiere. So, assuming notifications work for it, you will be getting a notification. But yeah, I just did want to let people know that for that premiere, it looks like Dr. Amate will be there. So you will have a chance to interact with him in the live chat. And hi, Adela. Good to see you. Let's see. Was there anything I missed about the party tonight? Let's see. It's in about 4.5 hours. Right. And so if anyone's missed the first two, you do have time to watch episode 1 and 2 before the party tonight. But if I didn't say so before, each episode starts with a bit of a recap. And if anyone shows up tonight that hasn't seen 1 or 2, what we'll do is we'll watch the recap at the beginning of episode 2, because it's a nice recap of episode 1, and then we'll start episode 3. So with the combined recap from the beginning of episode 2 and the recap that I assume episode 3 will also start with, you'll be able to follow along. And how about you, Adela? Do you think you'll be able to make it tonight? Or for anyone else watching at the moment, does anyone know that if they're going to be able to make it? Or does anyone have anything at all, like Nothing to do with the party tonight, nothing to do with Doom Patrol that they want to talk about at the moment. Well, nothing so far, and I am perfectly content to just sit quietly. So I think I'm going to allow the next minute or two to be boring and see. Ben Grant says, "Wagwan Lunatic." Hi Ben, how you doing today? Hey Daniel, sorry you couldn't make it into the last party. I have no idea what happened there. Ash, Shane, and Ryan, they didn't know either. Andrew had the same problem. So I don't know what happened. Other people had no problem getting in. Um, yeah, shit, I have no idea what that was. I don't know. Maybe Zoom is also having technical difficulties. Maybe they're having more use than usual. But we had about 10 people at the last party, and like a few people came and went. So well over a dozen people were able to use the link, but I do know both you and Andrew said it didn't work for you. So there may also have been other people that weren't able to get in and just didn't bother to let us know. Fuck right. That's the other thing is if you can't get in, shoot Shane a message. And I don't know what his preferred method is, but for anyone, maybe we'll add a link later underneath the Zoom description of where to message Shane if you can't get in. But for tonight, what I'll do is I'll see if me and Shane can remember that he just checks Discord for messages every now and then. So if anyone has trouble getting into tonight's party, just send like a direct message to Shane on Discord, and we'll try to check that. So that if that happens to anyone, we can get it figured out. Because there's no need for that, and I don't like the idea of anyone having the door locked and not being able to get into the party. But all you missed was episode 2. We only watched one last time, so you could either catch up on episode 2, or it seems like each episode's going to start with a recap that gives you details that are relevant to the current episode. All right, so it seems like people are pretty content with that. I'm not getting any other questions or comments. But I'll just sit here quietly for another minute to see if anything comes up. And if not, I'll sign off and see people tonight. Something occurred to me to share. So a little bit of news. For those of you who remember the chipmunk that I was friends with, I made friends with last summer, who made an appearance in some of my live streams when I was outside. It's spring here now in Quebec. It's just starting to get warmer and wildlife's coming back out. I'd seen a chipmunk just out the window a couple times and wondered if it was my little friend or a different one this year. And today I went outside to get an armload of wood. Hopefully today will be the last fire that I have the end of this winter. But when I went outside, I saw a chipmunk out in the yard. So I went back in and grabbed a handful of seed and came out and sat down to see if it was my friend from last year or somebody new. And sure enough, that was him, and he remembered me. His first approach was a little slow, but yeah, he came up, ate out of my hand. I hung out for a little while. He made a few trips back and forth, filling up on seeds and then running to stash them wherever he keeps them. But I was pleased to see that chipmunk survived the season, is still here, and it's very cool that he still remembers me. I really didn't know what kind of memory a chipmunk has, but apparently they do remember something from one year to the next. And Daniel says the story about the frog Merlin was interesting. All right, sure. I'll recap that story for anyone who missed it. So a couple years ago, apologies. So a couple of years ago, I made a small pond. It was like for the purpose of a magic ritual, to create a spot to gather celestial energy and such. Anyway, the full thing doesn't matter, but I dug out a little pond where I dug it just low enough for the groundwater to come up, and it's just a small little thing, but I made it like as a spot to meditate and do spiritual magical rituals throughout the summer. And the day I'd gotten the idea to do it, like I prepared the pond, and then I did, like to activate it, I did a ritual at the pond under a full moon one night. And when I came back out the next morning to take a look at the pond, and it's funny because I was told to make a little pond, and I said to my angel, well, aren't I more making like a small magic pool? Like, isn't it just a pool, not a pond? And he said no, use the word pond. And so I said, okay, I'm making a magic pond. And I still thought that was odd. But when I went back in the morning, there was a great big frog sitting in the middle of this little pond. And it did develop into a little pond. Water plants grew in it. A whole bunch of frogs ended up moving in. There was all the little water insects and whatnot. So made a beautiful little meditation spot. When I came out the next day to look at the pond and saw the frog there, it felt like a sign and whatnot. And the frog like hung out and didn't take off when I first approached. I mean, I approached slowly. So I went and caught some grasshoppers, and I ended up befriending that frog and naming him Merlin. And I would catch grasshoppers or slugs and feed them to Merlin as like an offering to the great spirit of the frog, like the frog god or the archetype of the frog, however you want to look at it. And I was quite surprised that you could make friends with a frog. So I spent a lot of time there. And after that, other smaller frogs moved in. And I found that because Merlin was tame, the other little frogs like tamed very quickly as well. So I could hand feed frogs there. The small, and new ones would be more skittish with me at first, and then they get used to me. But Merlin in particular was around all summer. Sometimes I wouldn't see him for a couple days, and he'd be back at the pond. But I interacted with Merlin all throughout the summer. And it got to where sometimes as I walked out, and he could just hear me, I guess, because the pond's uphill from a small creek, I would hear something in the grass, you'd see the movement, and sometimes Merlin would come running when he heard me come out, and just run and jump into the pond. There were other occasions where I went out to do a ritual at the pond, and Merlin began interacting with me in the rituals more and more. Again, I would often make sacrifices to the spirit of the frog, which is an animal associated with magic. The magician being someone who can be the magician as an amphibious being that can go between the magical realms and this realm. The frog is symbolic of that in some traditions because of the way the frog can live under the water and on land. But I would make both, sometimes just offerings to nature in general or offerings to the spirit of the frog during rituals by feeding Merlin. And but it was also amazing the time, like he would participate sometimes in ways I won't bother getting into now. But after I blessed an object, he would jump over it or climb on it or things like that. And there were a couple times where I went out to do a ritual and Merlin wasn't around, and I'd wait for a moment and he didn't show up. And so I would just yell for him. And sure enough, the frog would come calling or come hopping through the grass when I called for him and dive into the pond. So I don't think there was ever a time I went out to do a ritual by the pond where Merlin didn't show up. He was always either hanging out there when I went out, came up just when he heard me out there, or if not, would come when I called. There were a few days, I can remember times where I tried calling Merlin, like just to say hi to him, and he didn't show up. But anytime I was doing something spiritual or magical out there and I called for Merlin, he always turned up. I didn't end up seeing him the year after, though. So I don't know if he moved on or didn't survive. Daniel says, Dans la ferme à Mathurin. Not sure what that means. That's in the ferme. Is that how it's spelled? Is the French for farm? My French isn't very good, but I don't know what Mathurin is. So anyway, that's a short version of the tale of my summer with Merlin. But I'm very pleased that the chipmunk I got to know last year is still around this year. And this year so far, I don't know if the falcons are nesting or not. I've seen one falcon around quite a bit. So before, every year I'd been here up till last year, there's a pair of falcons that would come every spring and nest in the in the same spot. Last year, and I quite enjoyed watching the falcons throughout the year. And then when the babies were coming out towards the end of the year, practicing their flying. And last year I was watching for them, and in the spring I saw one falcon around. I'd never seen two. I wasn't sure at first if I was just seeing them one at a time, but I only ever saw one. I didn't see two at a time, and they didn't nest that year. Last year, one falcon was around for a little while in the spring and then moved on. And so what I thought might have happened was that it's a mating pair that split up. Like, I don't know the habits of falcons. I've just observed their behavior in my yard, but never looked anything up on it. So I wondered if maybe one of the pair didn't survive the winter and that one had shown up, and when their partner didn't show up, moved on. What I did find nice was at the end of the summer last year, a whole bunch of falcons were around towards the end of the year, around the same time usually when the baby falcons would come out and were practicing their flying and whatnot with their parents. Around the same time of year last year, a bunch of falcons were in the yard for a week or two. Like, they weren't nesting here, and it wasn't just two. There was, I don't know, I was seeing groups of 3 to 7 around for a while, and again, I have no idea, but it felt to me like some of the young that had been born here were stopping by around that time. And so far this year, I've seen one falcon again. I haven't seen two at once, but I did see this falcon flying into, they nest. There's this one broken down little shed, and right at the top of it, the one board is split open with a hole in it, and their nest is inside there. So this year I did see the one falcon going in and out of that nest. So I don't know if there's a pair mating here this year, or if it's that same falcon showing up, missing their mate, and just checking the old nesting spot out. But I am hoping that falcons nest there again this year. Oh, and Daniel responded that is a famous song about farm and animals. And Daniel says, yes, I will do my best to be at the watch party. Excellent. I always enjoy having you there. And yeah, let's set the intention that you don't have any technical difficulties tonight. Well, nothing really in particular is coming to mind for me to talk about. Not that many people are here. Nobody has any questions or anything. So I think I might wrap this one up and sorry. I think I might go take some time to meditate, recharge my energy, and take care of a few things so that I'm prepared for the party tonight. And yeah, that was the main point of everything. So I see a couple people just joined now. The number's going up for some reason as I say that I'm done. Fuck, that's weird. And if any of you have a question, fuck it, I'll stay on longer if someone asks something. But otherwise, the whole point of this was just to announce that we're having a watch party tonight. There's a Zoom link in the description. Everybody's welcome. We're going to be watching episode 3 of Doom Patrol, or probably episodes 3 and 4. But I think the way it'll go is we'll watch episode 3, talk for a while, then watch episode 4, talk for a while. And yeah, if you're just joining and you want to hear more about that, start this video over and you'll hear all the details. And Daniel's telling me, yes, go recharge my batteries. So yeah, unless a question pops up in the next 20 seconds, I'm just going to do that. And I'll see some of you hopefully tonight. And for the rest of you, I will see you again sometime for a Lunatic Live here on YouTube. All right, so it looks like we're good. So blessings, lunatic love to all, and I will see you when I see you.